and welcome to Conversations with Dr. Stephen Greer. This is Dr. Greer, and I'd like to thank the folks at the World Puja Network for hosting us here every 2 weeks to bring you up to date with what we're doing with the Disclosure Project and the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence and the film we're working on and completing Sirius. So thanks to all you folks there for hosting us. And I'm very excited about who I have with us today. Steve Alten, a very well-known writer and novelist who's known for his Meg series as well as Phobos and some other books. And his most recent one, I believe he will be able to discuss how he worked in some of the concepts of the Disclosure Project in the book, which is really quite interesting. He's a brilliant writer and has worked on many projects, and I'm honored to have him with us today. Thank you, Steve, for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Greer.
Yeah, why don't you let people know how it is that you found out about what we were doing and kind of how you worked it into your writing. I think it's really a great story.
Well, I have a series called the Domain series. It's sort of a Mayan Doomsday series. I know we're beyond 2012 now, but I started the series back in 1997. And Domain deals with the Mayan calendar and the hero twins, but it really deals with the fact that extraterrestrials have visited our planet before, and the knowledge that they've spread through different cultures, whether it's the ancient Egyptians who built Giza, or the Inca, or the Mayan, or the Aztec, or other ancient cultures, and as an attempt to try to explain not only how these structures were built, but the purpose of them being built. And so Domain, then Book 2, Resurrection, and then the final book, Phobos, Mayan Fear, delves into this extraterrestrial influence, and the hero of the story is the son of an archaeologist who was a expert on the Mayan calendar's Doomsday Prophecy, and the hero of the story is Michael Gabriel, who's when we first meet him, he's locked up in an insane asylum in Miami, trying to convince people that the world's going to end in the year 2012, which is a little difficult to do when you're diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenic. But what really enamored me to the Disclosure Project and your work is that in the process of researching Phobos, I came across the Disclosure Project and was just enamored with it. In fact, I sent away for the DVD, the books, watched everything that you had on it, and then realized that because in my writing I don't like to call it fiction. I call it faction, fact mixed with fiction,
right,
for a more interesting subject. And I also realized that sometimes you can reach a different audience and a bigger audience, or my more diverse audience, through fiction than you can with getting out DVDs of the Disclosure Project. So I wanted to first and foremost, I wanted to become a part of what you were doing, because your altruism and your efforts are so important. And I felt that I could bring my audience to it, and perhaps even one day a movie deal, and we go from there. So I reached out to you, and you were so kind in giving me permission to use what I needed, which was transcripts from some of the speakers at the original Disclosure Project in Washington, and so in the section of Phobos that deals in the present day, I used excerpts from those speeches in between the chapters, and what it does for the novels part is it brings a whole new light to whether extraterrestrials are real or not, and which,
right,
and which I think is really important for the reader, because if you've got somebody who's saying, well, I saw a flying saucer and they kidnapped my wife and subjected her to an anal probe, that's one thing. But if you have somebody from NASA or somebody from an Air Force pilot or an FAA officer, and he's giving testimony and you're using that testimony in between the chapters, and it sets your mind to believe that, maybe there's something to this.
Right. Well, absolutely. And this is, of course, many people don't know that Steven Spielberg's movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, was a docudrama, that he was actually given access to some of the files at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and that movie was actually more fact than fiction. And in fact, I know two people who were at the White House screening with President Reagan for Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and Reagan at the end of the movie stood up and said, there are only a couple people in this room who know how true to life this movie actually is. And I've had that confirmed from two separate sources who were there. So this has actually worked its way into pop culture in a lot of ways like that, and over the years. And I really appreciate that you've put some of the disclosure project material in it, because what the disclosureproject.org has done, and most people don't even know this, is that there's a part that people can see that's been available, but then that's like the tip of this huge iceberg, and we're trying to figure out how to get the rest of it out, because we actually have right now over 500 of these sort of military and CIA and corporate whistleblowers who have information, and I've actually videotaped 110 of them. So if you look at what's even in the 600-page disclosure book, that's only like 69 people. So, because no one's going to read a 4,000-page book, right? So, and so it becomes this enormous archive. And so what we're trying to do now is that we put someone on full time to go through this archive and begin to load up these interviews, at least what I call the director's cut, up onto YouTube, and so people will be able to see this over a period of time. And of course, the film Sirius will sort of encapsulate all of this whole subject, including some of the concepts that we're not alone now, but we've never been alone. That there's been evidence that there's been advanced civilizations that have been involved with humanity since the beginning of recorded history.
Well, I think what you're doing is so important, and I'll also think it, as we spoke before, it lends itself to TV too, and we're still trying to broach stations and producers to create some kind of TV series around what you're doing and actually use the testimonies in the series.
That would be great. Yeah, anyone who for either. At some point, I'll tell you there are two things that need to be done. One would be a series that would really drill down for a few seasons on all the material that we've already discovered, but also to have a feature film that would be like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but it would really be based on hidden truth, forbidden knowledge, which is a bit autobiographical. But that particular story turned into an actual movie would be an amazing way of telling the story to the world in a theatrical way, because of all the components of it, and that's just something of course, we've never had the resources to do, and the big folks in Hollywood who've tried to do it have been shot down when they've tried. But that's another whole discussion of how media in Hollywood gets. You can do fiction, you can't do fact on this subject, and it gets killed. The studios kill it. So.
Well, one of the other things I felt that was fascinating that also played into the work that I've been doing is two things, really. The first is the energy factor that we need to get off of fossil fuels to advance as a society, that the extraterrestrials can provide us with that kind of information, and that it's being bottlenecked and really cut off by the powers that be. And
right.
As part of that equation is the military-industrial complex and their effects on society, and the whole ridiculousness of depriving the masses so that they can make a profit from these things, and also the timing of the extraterrestrials' involvement when it comes to testing of nuclear weapons. One of the factors in Phobos Mind Fear is that deals with the Large Hadron Collider in Geneva that's being used to smash atoms together at near light speed.
Right.
Basically hoping to recreate the Big Bang in what's, I describe as an ego-driven search for the Higgs boson, or what they call the God particle, which is kind of an ironic name for a particle that creates miniature black holes as an offshoot of it, any one of which can escape into our universe and grow larger. And one thing that one of my characters says in the books is that there's two things you don't want to do with an atom. One is to split it, which causes nuclear explosions. The other is to collide them at near light speed, which creates black holes. And I just feel that the extraterrestrial presence is trying to ward us off of this Pandora's box, and of course we continue to ignore it.
Well, that's interesting because, Colonel Diedrichs and the people go to Disclosure Project, SeriousDisclosure.com. We have a site now where all these websites are integrated under one roof. We just launched it about a month ago. And it's SIRIUS, Disclosure.com. But there's a link there, and you can see that, people like Colonel Diedrichs and others who were involved in the early days, in the 50s and 60s, with nuclear weapons, that there was, in fact, he stated that there was not a single nuclear weapons facility or processing or storage area or site that had not had extraterrestrial vehicles that had been seen investigating what we were doing. And there was a man in British intelligence who told me that basically when the first atomic bomb went off, we sort of put a big red flag over the planet that said, look, these folks are in trouble because they've gotten to this level of understanding physics and the building blocks of the universe, but they haven't evolved spiritually or socially to where they won't turn them into weapons of mass destruction. And this is a existential threat, of course, to humanity. But I think, because I know what's been placed in classified programs that have to do with so-called scalar or longitudinal weapons, that they're actually go at multiples of the speed of light, which is conventional physics is not possible, but of course it is possible. UFOs are here, they're not getting here at some luminal velocity. If it's not catching the speed of light, it takes too long. But that when you have those sort of technologies, but then you weaponize them, you've really got a problem. So, so much of it is based in the consciousness of sort of this primate tribal mindset of, my God is better than your God, and my economic theory is better than your economic theory, and my skin color is better than your skin color. We're going to blow each other to pieces. Well, when we just had maces and muskets and stuff, it was one thing to behave that way. But when we have these kinds of technologies, it's a real problem, and I think the ETs know that. And I've often told people, people get fascinated with this idea that somehow the ETs are a threat to us. I said, look, if you have any idea the physics involved in interstellar travel, if they were hostile, we would know it, and it would have been the point-set match at the Trinity site in 1945, where we detonated the first atomic bomb. The fact is, they're obviously not hostile, but they're very concerned, as witnessed by these military guys who've seen these ET craft at all these nuclear weapons facilities, about our hostility. So in our typical anthropocentric way, we always project onto others what we have within ourselves, but collectively, that's why the movies that are coming out of Hollywood have all been all this rubbish like Battle of Los Angeles and Independence Day and whatnot. But in reality, I think a movie needs to be made that shows the human condition for what it is. You put a big mirror up in the sky and say, look at what we are doing to the planet. Look at what we're doing to each other. It wouldn't any civilization that has been watching us for that millions or thousands of years go, oh my God, this is getting to be a problem. Because not only are we weaponizing these technologies, which could be used for peace, we're also, withholding really beautiful electromagnetic systems that could keep us from destroying the biosphere and eliminating poverty and suffering on this planet. So this is a commentary that's not very attractive, unfortunately, on the human condition that we need to collectively correct.